From Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just yesterday, the world watched as President Trump, standing in front of the American flag, side by side with Vladimir Putin, not only betrayed the dedicated men and women of the U.S. intelligence and law enforcement communities, but then showered praise upon the Russian president, the man who directed the interference of our elections. This prompted outcry from members on both sides of the aisle, as it should. I read statements from my colleagues that were very strong in condemning President Trump for putting Russia ahead of the U.S., using terms like shameful and disgraceful. And not just from Republicans who've bravely stood up to this president before. I heard from members of Congress and even some Fox News contributors unable to twist themselves into defending this president in this moment, as he so clearly undercut our own country. And I am glad they spoke up, because words matter. But you know what also matters? Action. And so now I ask, what will congressional Republicans do about it? Many Republican members of Congress are acting if they just have a Twitter feed, as if they aren't the party in control of the Senate and House, as if they don't have the ability to actually make a difference and demand change. That is absurd. The time for hand-wringing and hoping the problem goes away is over. With the power to call up legislation and hold hearings, Republican leaders do have options, and they certainly have a whole lot of Democrats who stand ready and willing to help. Because, Mr. President, it was truly horrifying and deeply alarming that President Trump failed to use that moment to push President Putin to end his attacks on our country and our elections, and failed to condemn the Kremlin's interference in the election of our allies, or Putin's support of the brutal Assad regime and connections to chemical weapons attacks by the Syrian government, or the illegal annexation of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula, or the 2014 downing of MH17 over Ukraine, where 295 people were killed, or the murder of journalists and opposition politicians, or the use of chemical weapons, or the undemocratic, authoritarian, and repressive rule of the Putin regime and how it actively works against our American principles. Instead of standing up for our values and our national security, our president defended Putin on all fronts. Instead of putting America first, he performed Putin's bidding by attacking our closest allies and trying to dismantle NATO. Today, I know that President Trump tried desperately to backtrack, but we know where he stands, and we all heard what he said on the world stage just yesterday. It is appalling and inexcusable and unworthy of the president. So my message to every member of the Senate and to every member of the other body is clear. It is time to strengthen the sanctions against Russia for its aggression around the world, to demand answers from Secretary Pompeo and the other members of the Trump National Security Team, especially about what the president may have promised Putin during their closed-door meeting, and for them to provide Congress, all of us, with any notes from the meeting that may exist. We need them to stand up for and protect the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the Special Counsel, to insist the president demand the extradition of the 12 Russians indicted for their attacks on our election, and to pass election security legislation. This is not a partisan issue. This is about defending the integrity and foundational values of our nation. This is about Congress doing its constitutional job and holding the president accountable for his shocking and repeated failures. This is about telling our allies around the world they can still depend on the United States. And this is about putting the country before party. Stand not just with Democrats, stand with people across the country by taking action to hold Russia accountable and protect this country from future attacks. And ask President Trump why he is choosing to defend Russia and blame America. And ask what or who is motivating him. Because it's certainly not the American people, our security, our values, or our future. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.